Okay, when we are factoring by grouping, we're gonna have something that has 4 terms. Okay, but we are not really going to consider all 4 terms. So let's say we are given 3n to the third minus 12n squared plus 2n minus 8. Okay, we would say that this is a polynomial because it has multiple terms, and in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, right? 4 terms is what we call it when each piece being added and subtracted together counts as a term. Now, step number 1 for factoring by grouping is a step that is not going to be important today, but I don't want to leave it off the list. Okay, so step number 1 says to factor out a GCF from all 4 terms. Okay, so it says to look at all 4 terms just like we were doing and see if there's a GCF. So can we think of a number that will go into 3, that will also go into 12, that will also go into 2, that will also go into 8? One. No, just 1, right? No, 1. Do they all have the variable?
No.
Nope, so we cannot factor out a GCF, there is not one.
Just no.
Okay, so we just don't. We just skip that step. Step 2, we are going to skip that step all day today. Step 2 says to split the problem in half. Okay, and literally this is 4 terms, and half of 4 is 2, so we are just chopping this in half. Okay, so we're going to put 2 terms on the left-hand side and 2 terms on the right-hand side. Now the key here is that you need to split it so that the sign is staying with the appropriate number. That addition sign is telling me that that 2 is positive. Positive doesn't matter so much, right? But if that was a subtraction, I would need to know that it's negative. Okay, so I'm going to have 3n to the third minus 12n squared going over here to the left, and 2n minus 8 going over here to the right. We should all be able to split the problem in half. Okay. Step 3. We are going to factor out the GCF of each binomial. So we are going to do exactly what we were just practicing with a board marker and eraser. 4 terms split in half mean 2 terms, a binomial, which is why I kept giving you binomials. And you will factor out the GCF of 2 separate problems just like we did. So we're going to look over here on the left-hand side. What goes into 3? That will also go into 12. 3.
Oh.
Do they both have the variable?
Yes.
Yes. What is the smaller exponent?
2.
2. So we are going to factor out a 3n squared. That's just what we were doing with board markers and erasers, right? Nothing different at all. So we'll divide it out. 3 divided by 3 is 1. What's wrong, Nathan? Ignore this. Ignore everything else that I have up here. Pretend that I just gave you this problem. What type of numbers go into 3? 3.
Odd numbers.
3 is 12 divisible by 3?
No. Yes.
Yes, so I'm picking 3. And then I'm taking the smaller exponent, just like you were doing. Okay?
About to cry.
Don't. You were factoring a GCF just fine. Okay, so we're subtracting exponents, which gives me an n, a 1n, right? But I don't need to write that 1. Minus 12 divided by 3 is
4.
4. And 2 minus 2 is nothing. So no variable there. Right? This goes in parentheses. And my 3n squared goes in front. That's exactly what we were just doing in the POD. And then we were doing on the dry erase boards. And we were doing those well. Okay, we are going to forget that we did this at all for a moment. Ignore it. And we are going to look over here at this problem and just pretend like it is a new problem. Right now we don't need anything over there, we just need here. And we're going to look at 2n minus 8. And it is going to be a new problem, and we are going to factor out the GCF.
2.
What goes into 2? That will also go into 8. 2. Do they both have the variable? No. So if they don't both have the variable, right, can we factor out an n?
No.
Hey, Mr. Frederick. So we're going to just divide. So 2 divided by 2 is?
0.
No, what's 2 divided by 2? 1. Do I need to write that 1 down?
No.
With my n left over, 8 divided by 2 is?
-4.
Right, minus 4. Can I go any further?
No.
No. So are we okay there?
Yes.
Do you get that written down right now?
I didn't.
No.
Do you have a pencil? Write it down. What's wrong, Nathan? Other than you're about to cry. Tell me what you got.
Trying to comprehend.
Comprehend what? Tell me where you're stuck.
Why do you split it? And how do you put it back together?
Okay, so right now you're focused on something that we're not even to yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're splitting it in half right now just because Mrs. McKinney said so.
Okay.
I'll explain the why in a moment. Okay, so Mrs. McKinney said so, so you're gonna split it in half. You okay there? Okay, so once we had it in half, I'm pretending this doesn't even exist.
How do you know where to split it in half?
Well, what's half of 4?
Just perfectly half?
Yes, half. 2 and 2. Okay, so I'm chopping here. Right, where I'm keeping this sign with the number after it. Okay, and then I'm doing just what we were doing on the board markers and erasers, and you were doing great with those.
Yeah.
So you're okay here?
Yeah.
So I think right now you're hung up on a piece that I haven't explained yet. So just push that to a side for a moment. Okay? Are we okay with where those two things came from there?
Yes.
We all have this written down?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to flip the page and rewrite because I need to flip the page, but you don't need to. So we have a 3n squared and an n minus 4. And we have a what? A 2 and an n minus 4?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
No, no. Yes, a 2.
step number 4. Okay, for our fourth step. What's wrong, Imelda?
You said we weren't paying attention to number 2, right? And then now that you
She said we don't pay attention to number 1.
okay, don't get an attitude.
No, guys, just chill. Just chill. Okay, we are paying attention to number 1. Okay, we're paying attention to step 1. It's just that we don't have a GCF to factor out of the entire thing, so we're skipping it. There's not a GCF of the entire thing. Dylan, up here, please. There's not a GCF of the entire thing, so we don't do anything there. And then we're just going to split it in half. Okay, now I'm focusing on a GCF of just 2 terms. Okay? Okay. Step 4, we want to rewrite this as 2 binomials. This is the piece that's new today. Okay, when we go to rewrite this, this isn't an optional. This isn't like, oh, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. It is not a coincidence that these 2 things are the same. The only way that that we can factor by grouping is if those match. They have to look exactly the same. Okay, so do we agree n minus 4 and n minus 4 are the same thing? We're good there. So we are going to take our two GCFs. So what's my GCF of this one?
3.
3 n squared, right? This entire thing is my GCF. What's my GCF of the second half? 2. And I'm going to literally just squeeze them together and set them side by side. I'm going to show you. I'm literally just going to set them side by side. I'm going to take a 3n squared. Is this a positive 2 or is this a negative 2?
Positive.
And a positive 2. And I'm just setting them there.
That's the answer?
No, not yet.
We have a lot to do.
No, it's not a lot. It just, take a breath. Okay, and then we are going to write the common binomial one time.
That's the answer. Oh.
Is that it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, whew. Okay, we got those steps. Now, let's talk about what we're doing. We said factoring is undoing multiplication. Yes, Aiden?
Now do you have to multiply those?
No. Because we said factoring was undoing multiplication, and we should all agree that this looks pretty darn familiar to us, right? Because how many times have we multiplied these things out?
A lot.
More than you all cared to, right?
Yeah.
And if we wanted to multiply this out, we would distribute twice. And I would distribute 3n squared to n minus 4.
Oh.
And I would distribute 2 to n minus 4. And when I distribute them, it would give me a 3n to the third minus a 12n squared plus a 2n minus 8, which is the original problem. So if, I don't know, right? Not this cool. There's sometimes cool things happen. So David, if we were to distribute this, it better take us right back to where we started. Okay, so don't get stuck in a vicious circle of going here and then multiplying and then factoring and then multiplying. When directions say to factor, we want parentheses. We want them. We are trying to create multiplication. Our objective is parentheses, please.
Please.
Okay? Now that we take a breath, are we okay with that one? We made it through 4 steps. Okay? So let's look at what this actually looks like instead of saying this is so much work, the world is ending, Mrs. McKinney hates me. Let's look at another one. And let's say 4. No, I don't like that letter.
Wait.
15w to the third.
Do you want us to do this on notebook?
I sure do. Plus 40w squared.
That's a lot of work.
Plus 3w. Oh no, Mrs. McKinney is making you do
What is
2
that?
problems in your notes today.
Oh my god. That's giant.
That's crazy. I've never
Bro,
done
that's crazy.
Okay, is this 4 terms?
Yeah.
Yes, so can we consider factoring by grouping?
Yes.
Yes, so first thing we said is there GCF of all 4 terms. Can we think of a number that will go into 15, 40, 3, and 8? No. Do they all have the variable?
No.
No.
No, so no GCF. So skip step 1. Step 2 says what?
Split in half.
Split in half. Okay, so I don't know about you. If you personally want to rewrite it and separate them, that's fine. I'm fine with drawing a line and just knowing those are 2 separate pieces.
No.
Okay. GCF of 15w to the third plus 40w squared.
5.
5.
W to the second.
Why w to the second, Chloe?
Because that's the least of exponent.
Of the smallest exponent, perfect. So let's pull that out. Okay, here, right, this is what we've done a time. Now right hand side, what's our GCF?
1.
Excellent, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish it before the bell rings. What are we gonna write down as our final answer?
3 or 5. I mean,
Five.
it's second plus 1.